Hi, I'm Olivier and welcome to Horologique. Hamilton has a huge military history. This Hamilton Khaki Field Watch is a direct descendant from the field watches used in the Vietnam War in the 60s and 70s by American GIs. It was right before the era of quartz watches, so at that time you had to have a no-nonsense mechanical watch that could be tough and would get the job done without breaking. And this watch is very simple without being boring. The design is built to purpose without being plain, and very little has changed from the design of the 60s up to this one, and Hamilton prides itself for it. Let's check this watch a little bit closer if you may. Let's start with dimensions, and you've got a diameter of 38, which is historically correct. You've got a height of only 9.5 millimeters, and you've got a lug-to-lug of 46.3 millimeters. So it is of course a field watch, so you will have the hour numerals on an outer ring and on a pretty big font, and right inside those you will have on a smaller font the military time from 13 to 24. You will have an outer track at the very edges of the dial with triangles at every 5 seconds, and those triangles are a little bit longer at 12, 3, 6 and 9. The branding Hamilton is at the top of the dial, and you've got that very appreciated Swiss made at the bottom of the dial. The numerals, if you look at them closer, you will see that the big numerals are printed, but they're printed quite highly on a glossy material. I even wonder if it's not some kind of very thin application of metallic material. The 13 to 24 numerals, however, as well as brand, are purely printed. The indices are made of old radium, of superluminova old radium, as are the hands. And let's talk about those hands. These are pretty typical syringe hands. The hour hand is pretty similar to the minute hand, and that second hand has a lance tip and quite a big counterbalance. All the metallic parts of the hands, those surrounding the lume, have been painted black, which combines perfectly with the black of the numerals. Here's a lume video. That superluminova old radium working very well there. The hands especially are very well lumed. The little triangles, because of their surface, they're not that impressive, and you can see the tip of the second hand that is moving there at that slower pace. But wouldn't it have been wonderful to have those Arabic numbers filled with lume? That would have been a sight. Let's talk about the case of the watch, which is one of its most striking features, because it's a wholly bead blasted case, and it's bead blasted everywhere. Nowhere do you see brushing or polishing, but on a very small part of the back of the case and on the buckle. There are holes on the lugs for the spring bars, which makes it much easier to change into a bracelet or a strap if you wish to. Let's talk about the crown of this watch, and it's one of its strong points. The crown is big and it allows us to wind that mechanical H50, and the winding is something I have seldom experienced with watches. It is such a smooth but clicky feeling. It is very, very nice to wind. I find myself winding this watch just for the pleasure of doing it. Let's talk about another important feature of this watch, and that is the movement. The movement here is the H50, so this is a pretty new generation of movements. This one takes the 2804 as a base, the 2804, which was a version of the 2824 without the rotor. ETA has taken that movement here, and they have lowered the beat rates to 6 ticks per second, 21,600 beats per hour from the 28,800 that the 2824 has. Theoretically, the advantage of that is that you extend power reserve, number one, and number two, there will be less friction on the different parts, so theoretically you will be prolonging time between services. The downside is of course that you do not have that nice sweep It is a little bit more stuttery, and the big disadvantage here is that this becomes almost an in-house movement that is very hard to service by anyone else but Hamilton and then ETA. And that was a big advantage from the 2824 and those movements, that they could be serviced almost by anyone. But in any case, let's see how this one performs, and let's see if those modifications had any effect on the accuracy of this watch. And here the least we can say is that the H50 is behaving wonderfully. An amazing rate, a very generous amplitude, a bit error that is a bit higher than I could have hoped for, but nothing alarming in any case. Let's talk about the strap. Because of the budget constraints, I opted for the NATO strap, which is very, very nicely built. It is a green strap, of course, to remind us of their military heritage, but it has some touches of dark brown leather, which make it very nice, and they make it feel more quality than other NATO straps. The buckle is stainless steel, and it is signed Hamilton. With this watch, you will get 50 meters of water resistance. I would have hoped for 100. 50 to 100 is the difference between swimming with it and not swimming with it. So let's sum up the watch. The quality is there, and even though you have a mechanical movement and not an automatic one, I believe that it does give it some charm. Even though the movement performed beautifully as you saw in there, the fact that you cannot service it by anyone might be a bit weird. Thank you guys again for having watched the video, and I'll be seeing you very soon on another one. Goodbye.